Now then, the next project, set of carburetors from a GS500E 2001 model. They need full restoration. I'm going to show you what's involved in restoring a set of these carbs. These particular carbs smell of a bonfire, so I don't know if they've been involved in any kind of incident. Looking at the caps, you can actually see what looks like fire damage, so it could be that these carburetors have been involved in a fire, but doesn't matter. What we're going to do is going to do a full restoration, and I'll show you what's involved in doing a set of these so that we can get them up to superb condition, back into use on a bike, on the road. So the first thing to do is to take photographs of as many different parts of the carbs as you can before you even touch them. That way then you can see how they went together before you pulled them apart. So when you're taking them apart, if you don't know where something went, you can look at your photographs and they'll tell you the answer. So start taking your photographs, build up a little file of information. So preparation for strip down, the best thing to do is to get 2 tubs, one for each carb. Now I always use a different tub for each carb, so then you know just by looking which carb it is. And I normally arrange it so that you're looking at the carbs as if you was on the bike, and the one that's on the right is in the right hand pot, the one that's on the left is in the left hand pot. All that's obvious, but it's so easy to miss that, and then halfway through you think, shit, which carb did that come off of? So now we've arranged the carbs as per on the bike. We know left, right, and now we're starting with the rebuild. So here we go then. The first thing we're going to do, start stripping down. Now we need to undo these screws. Now these screws potentially are going to be tight. So before we even do anything, put a screwdriver into the screw, tap the end sharply with a hammer. Each screw, tap, tap, tap with a hammer, and then that'll loosen them off. And then once you've done that, then you'll be able to spin them undone. So I'm going to do that with these top screws, then take these 2 tops off. So out with the screws, into the pot, caps off. Then be careful, check the inside, make sure there's nothing hanging around in there. Take the spring out. Oh my god, look at the state of that spring. That spring is mullered. Then gently lift the slide up. Don't worry about checking the diaphragm needle or anything like that at the moment. Literally just put it into the pot so that you know which carburetor it come from. Then what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to duplicate everything. Everything that I do and I show you, I will duplicate with the other carb. So you'll only see me strip down one carb, saves you having to watch the same thing twice. Now we're turning this over, because now what we want to do now is withdraw this choke mechanism. So literally just gently undo these 2. So tap, remove, tap, remove. So remove both of those. Be aware that there's little nylon washers underneath. Screws off, little nylon washers. That then allows you to lift this choke rod off. Now underneath, on some carbs, oh, these ones not. There's normally another nylon washer. Now, these two screws here, these are the screws that hold the carbs together. Put a screwdriver in there, hit the end of it, undo it. And then we're going to remove both of them. So both these screws are undone. So now we'll just gently pull the screws out. Recover the aluminium spacers from between the carbs. Now the carburetors are held basically by how they join together and the little fuel. There you go. So these little bars here, look, they locate, plus these little connectors here, the fuel and the air connector, and then there's a connector where each carburetor joins each other so they can move universally together. So what I'm going to do now, put one carb to one side completely, then strip the other one. So this one is the left hand carb, so that's going over there. So this one is the right hand carb, so this is the one I'm going to strip down. I'm going to continue to strip this one down, and then when this one's stripped it will be the same for the other carb. Now come to the float bowl. 3 screws have responded to a light tap as all the others have, and they've started to unscrew. This one here will not. It's been mullered by somebody else, so you can't get a good purchase with a screwdriver. So we must undo that carefully without damaging anything. So here is one of the ways you can do it. I'll get a pair of moles. I'm very light. I don't grip it too hard. I very lightly grip it, then I just wiggle it. I don't try and undo it, I just try and wiggle it. Because all you want to try and do is break the seizure. Because once you've broken the seizure, you'll be able to do it. So you just rock it. Because if you can break the seizure, then you can get it off. If not, then you have to go the next route. There you go. See, I broke the seizure then. Very difficult because they're round headed and the moles slip off. But this does normally work. Then you can get a screwdriver in there, spin it off. When you're doing carburetor rebuilds, the biggest problem is the screws that won't undo. It is always the biggest problem. Absolute nightmare. So you have to think of ways around it. I mean, I always replace all the screws anyway, so the screws, doesn't matter if they get mullered coming off or scratched up, but what mustn't get scratched up and mullered is the carburetor body or the float chamber. So basically take your time. If you can't do it, go and have a cup of tea, relax. When you come back, you'll be amazed at how you can achieve it. So notice how now this is the fuel connector. Oh, notice how that has left the rubber connector inside the carb. This is the air connector. And now the throttle stop. Unwind the throttle stop completely, take it right out, then we can put it away for checking later on. So now look, we've got that screw there which retains this bracket. So remove that screw, so put a screwdriver in the screw, tap it, blaming Nora. That bolt there won't come undone. Relentlessly annoying. So I've put the carburetor in a vise. I've got a screwdriver with a pair of mole grips around the shaft. I'm going to tap the screwdriver into the bolt, use the mole grips to have a bit of leverage. Prior to doing that, I'm going to give it a good heat with a heat gun. So I'm going to go and do that now. Let's see if it works. So this one's a little bit difficult. We tried with the screwdriver, tried heating it up. No, it doesn't want to know. Absolutely doesn't want to know. So what I've done, I've got a chisel. I've put a chisel there and I've gently hammered it, put it in the vise in such a way that it doesn't get damaged. And then I've just gently chiseled it, and it is now, just now, beginning to move. So now look, it's loose. So I'm going to take that off. That was a challenge, that one. Had the same on this carb when I come to do the drain valve. It was so tight, screwdriver wouldn't get it undone. So I used the mole grip method, and that sort of got it moving. So now I should be able to remove it. It's essential to do that before you take the float chamber off, because if you take the float chamber off, you're then going to have no purchase. So now I can do that, and that's easy enough. So now finally, I'm going to whip the screws out so we can take off the float bowl and have a look at what's inside. I mean, all the screws are obviously going to be replaced. So off comes the float bowl. Have a look inside to make sure there's nothing hanging around in there. It doesn't look too bad actually, it's really clean. Really clean. So put that to one side. And now in here, check what you've got. Look at everything carefully to make sure there's nothing that shouldn't be here or is hanging off. The jets are quite badly mullered. Looks like they've been removed by an animal at some point. The float is held in position by this screw by the looks of it. Pivots there, it's pivoting okay. We need to make sure that we keep all of these jets in the right position so we know where they come from. Check the size so that we can then make sure that they go back, or if we're going to replace them, which we probably will, we're going to replace them with the correct size. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to whip these jets out and the float, and then we'll have an empty float bowl. Right, so what we do here, we introduce our little notepad. Notice I put down what the carbs are so that you don't end up looking at the wrong ones. I do loads of carbs, so I've got to make sure I know which ones I'm talking about. This is for the right hand carb, and main jet, intermediate jet, pilot jet. So when I take them out of the carburetor in a minute, I will then look at the sizes of each one, write them in here, so then I know what was in the carburetor when I took it apart. Doesn't necessarily mean it's correct, because when we do our research we'll find out what it should have, and to find out whether the jets that it has got are the correct jets. Because there's been plenty of times when I found that, whereas other people have put different jets in. I always rebuild carbs back to stock, exactly as it should be from the factory. So that's what we're going to do next. Take the jets out, find out what they are. Float screw off, take the float and the float valve off. Put that to one side, obviously to be checked later on. Each jet taken out and checked. This is a 115. The main jet is a 115. It's a genuine jet. The intermediate jet, 60. The pilot jet, 17.5. So I write those on my sheet and then put everything into the pot. Little tiny screw there that retains the float needle seat, and the emulsion tube, 8mm. Take that out, put that into the pot, and now we've got to look at what else is in the float bowl. Up inside where the emulsion tube came out, knock the needle jet out, put that into there. Now if we look up here, you have got a little tiny jet up there. Looks like it's stationary, doesn't look like we can get it out. Taking that little screw off, so now we should be able to get that float seat out. So we're going to get that out, and then the next stage of carburetor strip down, which is an absolute swine, is pilot air screw. Pilot air screw. How many carbs have been thrown in the bin because of the pilot air screw won't come out? So I'm fully expecting these to be fully seized. If they are, I'll show you how to get them out. Well, I've stuck a screwdriver in here, and to my amazement, it's coming out, because these quite often don't come out and result in quite a trip. But I haven't done the one on the other carb yet, so potentially. So pull that out, that's the float needle seat that goes over there, and get this needle jet right out. There you go. You'll have a needle, you'll have the spring, a washer, and the rubber. And I can tell you from past experience, you'll never ever get them all out in one go. So this one here is unusual. I better give the Guinness Book of Records a quick ring, because that's never happened. They obviously want to send somebody down to take some photographs. They won't believe me, because it never ever happens. But we've got another carburetor, and that's bound to be seat solid. If it is, I'll show you how to get it out. So now we carefully look around the carb to see if there's anything else we're going to take off. Now normally when I do a carb strip down, I don't take the butterflies out, because those screws, I used to take those screws out. You cannot replace those screws. If they fall out when the engine's running, it can destroy the engine. I ain't going to do that. So what I do here is I test to see if there's any float. If there's any float in that shaft, this carburetor, bin. Luckily, this one here, it's solid. There's no float in there at all, which is excellent. It's a little bit of a shame that sometimes you can take this off, because I like to take this off. I like to clean the spring, but obviously I can't on this one, because in order to do this, you've got to take the butterfly off and pull the whole thing out. I'm not doing that. One thing I do have to take off though is the choke pull here. That looks like it's a bit bent up, so that'll probably be replaced. So just undo this, take this out, and then this is nearly ready for cleaning. See, choke mechanism comes out of there, look. You normally get a new one of these in the kit. Well, that's a bit bent up. Looks like the head's about to break off of that, so that'll probably be replaced anyway. So yeah. So now this is ready to be cleaned. What a lot of people do is from this stage they throw it into the ultrasonic cleaner. No, that's not how you do it. What you have to do is you have to immerse it in proper cleaner, engine cleaner, and clean it properly in engine cleaner. Right, so carburetors are finally finished. Left hand one's in the left hand part, right hand one's in the right hand part. So now what we need to do now, the bodies can go into engine cleaner and be cleaned intimately, then they can go in the ultrasonic cleaner. Every single part that is in the pots must be laid out and fully inspected. Some of the stuff is going to be thrown away because it's going to be replaced with a kit, but those bits that might go back need to be individually looked at. So that's the next stage. There we go. Once it's laid out, now we can actually look at what we've got, throw away the stuff that is replaced in the kit or that you're unhappy with. A lot of stuff can be reused, but it makes sense if it's supplied in a kit and is a good quality kit to throw it away. Make a note too of everything, the needle size, where the clip is, everything. Make a note of it. It might not be right, but make a note so that then you know as it was stripped down where it was. So now what we're going to do now is do a research, find out exactly what should be there, where it should be, etc, 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 and then order the kit. There we are then, now laid out, full inspection, and we can see what we've got, what we're looking at. I've looked at each item separately and sort of come to the conclusion about some of the items. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fit some of the items into the going to be replaced stage, some in the going to be repaired stage, some in the perfectly okay stage. So we'll do that, and then I'll run past again and show you what I've decided
now we've
to do.
actually segregated. These bits here are going to be thrown in the bin. They're going to be replaced. I'll tell you something about those needles in a minute. But I'm going to be looking at the bolts, float valve, choke valve, and the lid, because the lids aren't in very good nick. So I'm going to put new lids on. Everything else can either be cleaned, repaired, replaced. But the jets don't look too bad. I'm going to see if I can get some, because I would prefer to replace them, but they will repair up quite nicely. So I'm not really panicky about those, but if I get some, I will. The other carb, same sort of thing, except the spring is absolutely mullered. So I'm going to get a new spring. I'll probably get a pair of springs, to be honest with you. Usual stuff like float needle, bolts, and the drain plug. Now with these needles, look at these needles. These needles aren't in bad nick, but look, they've got different spacers at the top. These carburetors must be running like a complete bag, because that one is bigger than that one. So that means that needle will be further up, so we'll be given a richer mixture at the same throttle opening. So basically what I'm going to probably do is probably buy a set of needles with spacers on all ready to go, so that way then I know that they're A-OK. So that's where we are at the moment. The bodies are going to go into the cleaning tank for their initial clean,
have a good look at them now so that you know how rubbishy they are to start with, so that when they're finished, when they finally come out the ultrasonic in a couple of days time, you'll be able to gasp in delight at how lovely they look. yeah, as if there's a set I've just done from an NTV, just come out the ultrasonic. They look really nice. Anyway, so that's where we are at the moment. Into the tank go the bodies, and then out comes the clean item, and then we'll look to see what will it be like when we come out. Well, everything has now been done. Everything is now ready for the rebuild. All the new bits have been purchased, all laid out. I've got new jets, new tops, new choke rods. I've bought kit, so I like the gaskets and the seals. All the stuff's been plated there, look, in the middle, all ready to go. And so now we're into rebuilding. Let's rebuild one carb, and then we'll join them together and synchronise them. That bit's been zinc plated, fitted with a new bulk. Remember, I chiselled the old one off. That's looking really nice. I plated the spring of the throttle stops, and now I'm going to put that together and assemble that to the carb, like so. Just screw it in so it touches the crank. Next, let's put the choke rod into position. Safely in position. A little bit arduous with the bell crank and that little bracket there. I took the bracket off to make it easier to get it in, but that's now in and safely positioned. So the next thing is we need to concern ourselves with the float chamber. Now next we're going to fit this emulsion tube, but the little jet tube has to go up first. They go into this hole here. It's imperative that you get this correct, because notice that goes into the carburetor. That bit there with the beveled edge must meet the emulsion tube. Don't put it in the wrong way round, because it'll be a bloody nightmare. Once that's safely into position, the main jet goes into there. Now, as I said to you, I've bought new main jets. They're decent quality ones, Tormax ones, they're good quality. But the interesting thing about this is it should be a 127.5, and I think it had a 115 in it. So it's a good job I did the research, otherwise I would have put the wrong jets in it. So yes, it's got a 127.5 is what's going in, brand new one. So that will safely go into position there. Now this next jet, this pilot jet, is also new. I bought new pilot jets as well. That is a 6.0. That's what was in there. So it did have the correct pilot jets in there. Somebody had changed the main jets, probably because the needle was causing all sorts of grief. If you remember when I stripped it down, the needle was horrendous. So somebody was probably changing the jets to try and get the bike running properly. And really, at the end of the day, it needed the needle sorted out. So now I'm going to put a brand new jet in now. And then we'll fit the pilot jet into that hole there, which is a 17.5, which is what it had. So this is the pilot jet, that's the intermediate jet, that's the main jet. So this goes into there now, and then we'll fit the float. So now fit the float seat into the chamber, retained by this little tiny screw. Yeah, I know it's a bit primitive in it, but hey ho, I didn't design it. Do that up. That retains the float screw. Yeah, I know. Yeah, looks like IKEA, doesn't it? I know. Then fit the float valve to the float. And lower the float into position, allowing the valve to go into the seat. And if you thought the float seat was archaic, the way it's retained, look at the way this is retained. That goes in there like that. You then screw that screw into there like that. I know. You won't believe this. You don't believe it, do you? No. That comes up against the pin and that holds the float in position. If you was the head of a design team and somebody went, yeah, I got me float retaining method, you'd go, mate, go down to the HR, get your cards and sling your hook, because that, mate, is the sort of thing that made. Well, no, I won't say it because I might get struck off. Anyway, that's how you do it. Now, what we've got to do now is we've got to check the float height. Oh dear, the float height, the science that baffles everybody. So much so they can't even tell you in a book what the float height is. You have to spend ages looking. So what you have to do, you have to hold the carburettor like this, and you have to tilt it until the float comes down and shuts the valve. No more. Don't tilt it anymore, because if you tilt it anymore, it shuts the valve and it compresses the little spring-loaded plunger on the end of the float. So you bring it down until the float shuts the valve and no more. And then you measure the height from there to the top of the float. That is the float height. Of course, millions of different people say millions of different things. On these particular carbs, the float height is 13 mil. So 13 mil is what it says, 13 mil is what I put it to. That one there that you're looking at now is exactly 13 mil. Next, we're going to fit the float bowl. Make sure the float bowl is immaculate, inside and out. Put in the drain plug, make sure that's perfect, and seals and everything. What I normally do, I normally put a little bit of fluid in there and see if it leaks out. If it leaks out, then you've got an issue. If it doesn't leak out, then it can be pressed in service. Right, so now what we're going to do now, brand new float gasket. What I'm going to do to retain the float gasket onto the float bowl long enough for us to put it on, I cover this area with grease. Fit the gasket, the grease then holds the gasket, and then we can place it on top of the carb. Let's go and do that now. Like that. Just retains it long enough for you to actually physically lower it into position on the float bowl, or on the float chamber, should I say. Keeps the gasket in position, and then we can lock it down with brand new bolts and washers. Like that. All nicely finished off and in excellent condition. So the next thing we're going to do is fit the pilot air. Now the pilot air screw, difficult to see, I know. Pilot air screw. Pilot air screw must be immaculate. Put the spring on, washer, and then the rubber O-ring. Make sure that needle is perfect, and then fit that into the pilot hole. Screw it down until it just bottoms, and then back it off. I always back it off 1.5 turns, but obviously certain manufacturers tell you certain things, so obviously refer to your workshop manual. I always, when I'm building carbs, go back 1.5 turns, and then if I read the manual and it says 2.5, then I'll back it out another 1, so I know that they're always 1.5 from bottom when I build them. So the next thing to do is fit the slider.
When fitting the needle, make sure that the needle has the correct spacers on. Get the little keep with the spring, feed the needle into the slide, put the keep on top, pop it in, and then it should look like this.
Get the needle and the slider kit and just slide it carefully into position, making sure that the needle enters the needle jet smoothly. Don't force anything. Then when it's down, make sure that the diaphragm locks into its groove all the way around the edge. I sometimes use grease, once again, to prevent it from jumping out, just to hold it long enough for you to put the lid on. Spring in, lid on. That's it. And then on these carbs, special screws with a shoulder on them to position the lid. Then we just tighten them down, nip, nip, dump, wipe any grease off that might be evident, and there you have a carburetor that's now rebuilt, ready to be joined to its mate to make a running pair. Look at that. So now the next thing is, how do we make them into a pair? Right, to get the two carburetors, here's the other one, and I've now passed through the hold down bolts. I've put everything on this carburetor, the fuel connector, the air connector, these little tiny connectors, and the aluminium spacers. Then what's going to happen now is this little tang here is going to have to be fed into between the spring of here, and then as we feed that in, making sure that it connects to the other things, and then we do the bolts up, and that pulls the carburetors together. And then when you're doing it up, make sure you do it gently, carefully, just in case you muller something, because the power of those bolts, you can actually destroy something. So we now very carefully start to join it. Notice the fuel pipes going in, and look at that there, look. I'm going to have to pull that spring down to allow that to go in. So you're going to have to be careful with that. Fuck the spring. So you just allow that to come together, pushing it in nice and gently, making sure everything lines up. These little bits go into their holes. The fuel tube goes into its hole. The air piece into its hole. And that's it. Then we carefully spin these up so they've just nipped. So we look at this fuel line. Air line. Yep. It's not just quite tight, that air line. The two connectors, they're connected. The carburetor link is together, so that then we can go around and make sure that's operating. Yep, we've got to put the spring in, obviously, which will be highly entertaining. Look to make sure that everything is as it should be. when you're happy that it's all done, tighten the 2 hold down screws till they're tight. They've locked up on the spacers, so you know they're done up. Yep, that still moves. Yep, that still moves. Yep, that moves. Yep. So all we've got to do now is get that little tiny spring in there, which would be highly entertaining. About an hour later, 16 cups of tea, kicking the cat and all of that. Yeah, the spring finally went back in. So it's not a 2-minute job. That's an absolute pain in the proverbial. Now that that's in, now we can go into the synchronization phase. And then these carbs, apart from the choke rod, which we've got to fit, will be finished. Choke rod. We fit the choke rod on, 2 nylon washers on top as per the strip down, then 2 little screws which retain the choke rod. Nip it up, nip it up. That should be the choke rod in excellent condition, working perfectly. So now synchronization, and then nous avons fini. We finish. So that'll be good, won't it? So to synchronize the carbs, open the carburetor, the master carburetor, with the throttle stop, this one here, and then we get a small gauge to slide in between the butterfly and the bell mouth, and then we adjust the other one to be exactly the same distance. That way then they are fully synchronized. So adjust with the throttle stop until one of these just fits between the butterfly and the venturi. And then when you've got that an exact arc, you then put exactly the same gauge in between the other one, and you adjust this central screw until that feels exactly the same. Then these carbs are synchronized. And then adjust the throttle stop down until it just comes off of the throttle stop, so that the bell mouth is completely shut. Both bell mouths are shut. And then adjust the throttle stop until it just takes the bell mouth onto the throttle stop. So choke works perfectly, throttle is perfectly synced, throttle stop is just touching. So basically that's your standard setting. The air screws are 1.5 turns out. Now you can read the manual now, and if it tells you 2.5, 3.5, whatever it might be, you can adjust each one until you've actually got that setting. And then basically when it goes onto the bike, that's when you can do the proper setting up with the vacuum gauge. Okay, so here you go then. GS500 Suzuki 2001 carburetors, fully overhauled, ready for instant action. Hope that's been of some use to you. Let me know if there's anything you'd like to know or you'd like to see me do, and yeah, apart from sling me hook, you know, and then yeah, I'll see you soon. Take care and see you soon. Bye.